There's something almost no one talks about in the wellness community, something so rare, so profound, that when it happens, it fundamentally alters reality for both people involved. I'm talking about what happens when two souls who've awakened find each other, not two people who read the same self-help books, not two people who attend the same mindfulness workshops, not two people who simply share an interest in spirituality. I'm talking about two people who have genuinely dissolved their identification with the chatter of the mind. Two people who live primarily from presence rather than from ego. Two people who have touched the eternal within themselves. What happens when they meet? Eckhart Tolle has spoken about this, but what he reveals is not what most people expect. And the truth might completely transform how you see relationships, connection, and love itself. Because here is the paradox that very few understand. Most spiritual seekers spend years hoping to find that one person, that deeply kindred spirit, who will finally understand them. They believe that when they find this person, all their loneliness will dissolve, all their struggles will end. They will finally feel complete. But Tolle points to something entirely different. He says that relationships are not here to make you happy. I need you to really hear that. Relationships are not here to make you happy. They are here to make you conscious. And this distinction changes everything, because if you approach relationships with the unconscious belief that another person will complete you, you have already set the stage for suffering. You have placed an impossible burden on another human being. You have asked them to fill a void that no person can fill. You have made them responsible for your inner state. And this is exactly what the ego does. The ego is always seeking salvation through external forms, through achievements, through possessions, through relationships. The ego says, when I find the right person, then I will be at peace. But that peace never comes, because the ego is the very obstacle to peace. So what happens when two people who have genuinely transcended this pattern find each other? What happens when neither person is looking to the other for completion? What happens when both people are already whole within themselves? This is where it gets extraordinary. Tolle describes that when two awakened beings come together, there is no drama. Think about that for a moment. No drama. No cycles of attraction and repulsion. No pattern of idealization followed by disappointment. No push and pull of conflicting egos. Just presence, meeting presence. Stillness recognizing stillness. The eternal in one person bowing to the eternal in the other. This is what true love actually is. Not the desperate clinging that most people call love. Not the emotional addiction that creates such highs and lows. Not the need-based attachment that masquerades as connection. True love is the recognition of yourself, of your deepest essence, in another being. Tolle said this in an interview with Brené Brown, and it points to something profound. When you are present, truly present, you see through the form of the other person to the formless within them. You see beyond their personality, beyond their history, beyond their conditioning. You see being itself looking back at you. And in that recognition, there is love that has no opposite. This love does not come and go based on circumstances. It does not depend on the other person behaving in a certain way. It does not fluctuate with moods or conditions. It simply is, because it arises from the eternal, not from the mind. But here is where most people get confused. They hear about this kind of love and they think, I want that. I'm going to go find someone awakened to have this experience with. And in that very thought, they have already missed it. Because the seeking is the problem. You cannot find awakened love by seeking it. You can only become the space where awakened love can arise. This means the work is always internal. It means becoming so rooted in presence yourself that you no longer need anyone to complete you. It means dissolving your own emotional baggage so completely that you are no longer triggered into unconscious reactivity. It means making peace with being alone so deeply that you no longer approach relationships from neediness. And then, something mysterious happens. When you are no longer seeking, you become attractive in a completely different way. Not attractive to the ego of others, which feeds on drama and intensity and the roller coaster of emotions, but attractive to presence itself. You become a magnet for consciousness. And if there is another being who has done similar inner work, who has also become rooted in presence, you will recognize each other, not through the usual mechanisms of attraction, not through the ego-based chemistry that creates infatuation, but through something far deeper. You will recognize the stillness in each other. You will feel the spaciousness that surrounds the other person. You will sense that they, too, are not lost in the dream of form. This recognition is instantaneous and unmistakable. There is no questioning, no second guessing, no wondering if this is it. You simply know. Because being recognizes being. Truth recognizes truth. But I want to be very clear about something, because this is where spiritual escapism often happens. This is not the same as the intense feeling people call meeting your kindred spirit. Research published in academic journals shows that what many people call kindred spirit experiences are often characterized by intense energy dynamics that can make relationships extremely difficult. Studies have found that kindred spirit relationships score higher on telepathy, synchronicity, and energetic phenomena, but also on triggering, bodily activation, and what researchers call difficult energy dynamics. Psychology today has pointed out that many relationships that feel instantly intense are actually the byproduct of trauma bonds and unhealthy attachment styles, not spiritual connection. This is crucial to understand. The intensity that the ego craves is not the same as the depth that presence offers. Ego-based intensity creates drama, conflict, cycles of breaking up and getting back together. Presence-based depth creates peace, expansion, continuous growth without the need for crisis. They feel completely different. The ego will be bored by presence-based love. It will say, where is the passion? Where is the fire? Where is the excitement? But the presence within you will recognize this love as home. It'll feel like finally arriving. After a lifetime of wandering, it'll feel like rest now. Let me describe what this actually looks like in practice, because theory is useless without application. When two souls who've awakened are together, there is space in the relationship. Eckhart Tolle speaks about this directly. He asks, with any human relationship, the question is there space? Space is when thought becomes unimportant. Even emotion becomes unimportant. What remains is pure presence. In practical terms, this means two people can sit together in complete silence and feel more connected than most couples feel while talking for hours. It means conversations arise from presence rather than from the need to fill emptiness. It means disagreements are handled without the emotional baggage taking over, without words being used as weapons, without the need to be right. When a conflict arises between two souls who've awakened, something extraordinary happens. Neither person identifies with their position. Both can observe their own reactions without being controlled by them. Both can see the ego arising and choose not to follow it. And because neither is fueling the fire, the conflict naturally dissolves, not through suppression, not through one person winning and the other losing, not through compromise that leaves both unsatisfied, but through presence itself. The light of awareness illuminates the unconscious patterns that would normally create conflict, and in that illumination, they lose their power. This is what Tolle means when he says, relationships are the ultimate training ground for practicing presence. Because it is one thing to be present when you're alone, meditating, in ideal conditions. It is another thing entirely to remain present when another human being is triggering your deepest fears, your oldest wounds, your most entrenched patterns. This is where real growth happens. This is where presence is truly tested. And when two people are both committed to this, when both recognize that the relationship is a vehicle for awakening, rather than for ego gratification. Something alchemical occurs. Each challenge becomes an opportunity. Each trigger becomes a teacher. Each moment of friction becomes fuel for deeper awakening. This does not mean the relationship is always easy. In the conventional sense, deep transformation is not comfortable. But there is a profound rightness to it, a sense that everything is happening exactly as it needs to. And beneath whatever challenges arise, there is an unshakable foundation of presence, a knowing that you are both in this together, that you are both pointing in the same direction, that you are both serving something larger than your individual egos. This is what Tolle calls enlightened relationship. Not a relationship where both people are fully enlightened, in the ultimate sense, but a relationship where both people are committed to awakening, where the relationship itself becomes a spiritual practice, where love is allowed to flow from the eternal in, rather than from the mind. In his book, The Power of Now, Tolle dedicates an entire chapter to enlightened relationships. He explains that most relationships oscillate between what he calls the love and hate cycle. There is the initial phase of intense attraction, where the other person seems to make your life complete. Then inevitably, the reality sets in. They do not always behave the way you want. They have flaws. They trigger your emotional baggage, and love turns to resentment. Appreciation turns to criticism. The person you idealized becomes the source of your suffering. This cycle repeats over and over. Join unconscious relationships, but in an enlightened relationship, this cycle is broken, not because the challenges disappear, but because both people recognize the pattern for what it is. They see the ego arising. They see the emotional baggage being activated, and instead of identifying with it, they observe it. They bring presence to the very places where unconsciousness wants to take over. This is revolutionary. This changes everything about how relationships function. Now, I want to address something that might be arising in you. As you hear this, you might be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but it feels so far from my reality. You might be looking at your current relationships and seeing how much ego is still operating. You might be feeling discouraged, like this kind of love is only for special people, not for ordinary people like you. Let me speak to this directly. First, the fact that you resonate with what I am describing means something significant. It means the seed of awakening is already alive in you. It means you have glimpsed, even briefly, what is possible, and that glimpse is enough. Because awakening is not about arriving at some final destination where you never experience ego again. Awakening is a continuous process of noticing when you have fallen asleep and choosing to wake up again. Every single moment offers this choice, and every moment you choose presence over identification with thought, you are strengthening that muscle. You are making awakened love more possible. Second, you do not need to find another awakened person to begin this work. In fact, trying to find an awakened partner before you have done your own inner work is putting the cart before the horse. It's go. The question is not, where can I find someone awakened? The question is, how can I become more present in my current situation, with my current partner, in my current circumstances? Because here is the secret: your presence can awaken presence in others. When you stop reacting from the emotional baggage, when you stop feeding conflicts with your own unconsciousness, when you begin responding from stillness rather than reactivity, something shifts in the dynamic. The other person may not consciously understand what has changed, but on some level, they will feel it. They will notice that the usual patterns As are not playing out, they will experience at moments of unexpected peace, and in some cases, your presence will call forth their presence. Not always. Some people are so identified with their ego that they will resist this. They will escalate. They will try to provoke you back into unconsciousness. But that is their journey. Your journey is to remain present, regardless of how others respond. Your journey is to be the space that Tolle talks about. He says, "It is the most wonderful thing if you can be there for the other, as space, rather than as a person." What does this mean? It means letting go of your agenda for how the other person should be. It means not requiring them to change in order for you to be at peace. It means offering them the gift of your presence, your acceptance, your non-judgment. And from that space, genuine connection becomes possible. Now, what about the question of how to know if you've truly met another awakened being? This is important, because the ego is very clever at creating false recognitions. The ego can convince you that intense attraction is spiritual connection, that shared beliefs about spirituality equal shared presence, that someone who uses the right vocabulary is someone who embodies presence. These are traps. Here are the true signs that you've met someone who is genuinely rooted in presence. First, there's a quality of stillness around them, not a forced stillness, not the stillness of someone suppressing their emotions, but a natural, effortless stillness. That comes from being at peace with what is. You can feel this stillness. It's almost palpable. When you're in their presence, your own mind tends to quiet down. Your own nervous system tends to settle. This isn't something they are doing to you. It's simply the effect of presence meeting presence. Second, there is no neediness. They enjoy your company, but they do not need you to complete them. They appreciate you, but their happiness does not depend on you. They love you. But that love does not come with conditions or demands. This is very different from the ego-based love that says, "I love you as long as you make me feel good, as long as you meet my needs, as long as you behave the way I want." Third, they take responsibility for their own inner state. When they experience difficult emotions, they do not blame you. When they're triggered, they recognize it as their trigger, not your fault. When conflicts arise, they look inward first before pointing outward. This is the hallmark of someone who's done real inner work. Fourth, there's depth to them that goes beyond personality. When you talk with them, you sense that you're not just communicating with their mind or their story. You're touching something timeless within them. Conversations feel different, more real, more meaningful. Even silence together feels alive. Fifth, and this is perhaps the most important, they point you back to yourself, not in a teaching way, not by telling you what to do, but by their very being. They remind you of your own true nature. In their presence, you remember who you are beyond your thoughts, beyond your story, beyond your conditioning. This is what Eckhart Tolle means when he says, "Love is the recognition of yourself in the other." When you meet someone truly present, they become a mirror, not a mirror reflecting your ego, which is what most relationships do, but a mirror reflecting your essence, your being, your true self. And in that reflection, you remember what you forgot. This is the greatest gift two awakened souls can give each other, not completion, because both are already complete, not happiness, because happiness based on external conditions is always unstable, but remembrance, a constant reminder of the truth that lies beneath all surface appearances, a continuous invitation back to presence, a living demonstration that another way of being is possible. This is what happens when two awakened souls meet. Not fireworks and drama, not intensity and passion in the ego sense, but depth, peace, recognition, home. The ego will continue to tell you that this is not enough, that you need the highs and lows, the drama and reconciliation, the pain and pleasure that most call love, but the presence within you knows better. It knows that what I am describing is the only love that does not lead to suffering, the only connection that deepens rather than fades, the only relationship that serves awakening rather than reinforcing the dream. And now I want to share something practical. If you're currently in a relationship and you want to move toward what I've been describing, here's where to begin. Start with yourself. Every time you notice yourself wanting your partner to be different, pause. Recognize that wanting them to be different is the ego seeking salvation through form. Come back to presence. Accept them as they are in this moment. This does not mean you can't have boundaries. This does not mean you accept abusive behavior. But it means you stop the constant mental rejection of what is. Every time you feel triggered by your partner, pause. Notice the sensation in your body, the contraction, the heat, the familiar pattern arising. And instead of expressing it as blame or criticism, stay with it. Feel it fully without acting from it. Let presence illuminate it. This is how the emotional baggage dissolves. Not by suppressing it, not by expressing it unconsciously, but by bringing the light of awareness to it. And every time you feel disconnected from your partner, pause. Instead of looking for connection through conversation, or activity, or physical intimacy, try this. Simply become present in their presence. Feel their being, not their personality, their being. Feel the aliveness that animates them, and allow your own presence to meet that aliveness. This is where true connection lives, not in what you do together, not in what you say to each other, not even in how well you understand each other, but in presence meeting presence. Being recognizing being, the eternal in you acknowledging the eternal in them. This is the love that Tolle points to. This is what happens when two awakened souls meet. And the beautiful thing is, this love is available right now. Not in some future moment when you finally find the right person, not when your current partner finally changes, not when you become more spiritual or more evolved. Right now. Because presence is always here. And wherever there is presence, there is the possibility of this love. Even if you're alone, you can feel it. Because ultimately, this love is not between two people. It is the love that underlies all existence. The love that is your very nature. The love that you are. When two awakened souls meet, they simply become mirrors for this love. They reflect it back to each other. They remind each other of what they already are, and in that mutual remembering, something sacred is born, something that the world desperately needs, something that contributes to the awakening of humanity itself. This is why enlightened relationships matter, not just for the two people involved, but for the collective consciousness of our species. Every relationship that moves from ego to presence, from neediness to wholeness, from drama to peace, adds to the shift that is happening on this planet. You're not just improving your love life, you're participating in the evolution of human consciousness. And that is the most important work any of us can do. Now, I'd really like to hear from you. Have you ever experienced what I've been describing? A moment of true presence with another person, where the ego just dropped away and something deeper emerged? Or are you in a relationship right now where you sense this potential, even if it hasn't fully manifested yet? Share your experience in the comments below, not to seek validation or advice, but to contribute to the collective understanding, because every story shared reminds others of what is possible, and in this time of collective awakening, we need all the reminders we can get. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your willingness to explore these depths, and thank you for being part of this shift. The love that you are seeking is the love that you are. May you remember this, and may you meet others, who help you remember. Because the meeting of two awakened souls is not just a personal blessing, it's a contribution to the collective awakening. Every such relationship becomes a beacon of what is possible, a demonstration that love, without suffering, exists, proof that consciousness can meet consciousness and in human form. And in this time of great transition on our planet, we need more of these beacons. We need more examples of what enlightened relationship looks like. Not perfection, not constant bliss, but presence, depth, growth, truth, the love that transforms both people and radiates outward to touch everyone they encounter. This is the love that will heal our world. This is what happens when two awakened souls meet. And this is why your own awakening matters so deeply, not just for you, but for all of us, for consciousness itself, seeking to know itself more fully through these precious human connections, for the love that has been waiting since the beginning of time to express itself through you, for everything that you truly are, beyond the story you've been told about yourself, and for the love that awaits you when you finally awaken to who you really are.